Today on Just Curious, I'm joined by Nicole Hedley, co-founder and CEO of Headstart, an AI native development company that's redefining how software gets built. Nicole started Headstart with her brother Chris after engineering roles at Pinterest, AppNexus, and multiple early-stage startups. With a background in computer science and a deep belief in the potential of AI to transform the way teams build, she now leads a team where AI writes 90 to 97% of the code, and real products go from idea to launch in just weeks. In this conversation, I hope you'll come away with a greater understanding of how Nicole builds production-ready software in weeks using large language models like Claude, why successful AI projects start with business problems and not tools, and how teams can adopt AI quickly without hype or over-engineering. Nicole, welcome to Just Curious.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
I mentioned how you build a company where AI writes most of the code and projects ship in weeks, not months. Can you take us back to the beginning? What inspired you to start Headstart?
Yes, absolutely. So I first interacted with OpenAI's technology in May of 2022. One of my friends from my first job at Pinterest, he was employee 99 there. And so he gave me insight into Dolly and the image generation that they were building. And from there, I was able to see in the playground access to GPT-3 and some of the early models, LLMs that they had published that were not yet in ChatGPT format. And so I was playing around with them there and thought the technology was the coolest thing I had ever seen. Ended up leaving my job in October of 2022, where I was managing a team of 50 engineers at a startup. And then ChatGPT launched on November 1st of 2022. And so I started to use ChatGPT back when it was GPT 3.5 to write code. I started consulting coding, realized that you could write entire code bases just leveraging 3.5. And by the time 4 came out in March of 2023, I was really getting into the kind of groove of using it to write all the code that I was delivering. And so the original agent orchestration was just me via ChatGPT generating a lot of code. And then as the models got better and better, we were able to evolve from there. But I built out solutions by myself for a year and a half, actually, before bringing on my brother and turning it into what we now call a real company by really developing software around it. And we've now built our own coding agent to do what I was originally doing via ChatGPT.
Awesome. Tell us more about Headstart. I've shared how you do things very quickly, but what do you do and who do you do it for?
So we specialized in applied AI solutions for growing companies and enterprises, and also just automating that entire software development process for those solutions. So typically we're implementing the AI, OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini APIs for clients for their specific use cases, helping advise on what is the best solution to provide, and then how do we evaluate and optimize that for cost as well. And then we are leveraging the AI in our development of the entire solution, speeding up the delivery of the timeline with quality code. And so allowing them to just get more done faster. A very wide variety of clients. We don't specialize in a certain industry, very focused on just solving problems for people with software.
I know you've worked across, as you mentioned, a wide variety of industries from fashion to fintech to oil and gas. Can you share a little bit more about your process to find real valuable problems that AI can solve?
Yes. So most of our business comes inbound, which is fantastic. So people typically have a problem that they're looking to solve. When we first meet with them, we talk with them about really the pain point that they're experiencing, whether it's them, their customers, their clients, and work with them to define what is the properly scoped solution to be able to solve their problem. This is a good amount of back and forth just to kind of nail down that problem and be able to decide what we want to solve. It's very input and output based. So we always ask our clients, what is the outcome that you're looking for? What is the output at the end of this? And then maybe what data do you have to provide as an input, or what are the various inputs that we can take in to get that output? We take care of everything in between. So we just tell them any input that you have available, tell us the dream output, and we'll do everything else. And so very focused on just solving problems. And we explain also how we use AI to solve those problems and where AI is better versus where maybe deterministic, what I call regular software, is better. And the combination of those two together are usually the most powerful.
Yeah, which is to say that like AI might not be the right solution, but you can still use AI to design a solution and deliver a solution quickly and super cost effectively.
Exactly. Sometimes the hardest part of the solutions that we deliver are the regular software parts, and the AI is the easier part of it. And so it really depends on what the client's looking to get done and just the regular trade-offs that they're looking for, like cost, speed, volume, all those things are things that we look at when we're designing some of these solutions. If you want super high volume and you want deterministic same results every time, regular software is always going to be more cost efficient and faster for that. But the LLMs can help with a lot of different problems that regular software can't. So you have to combine the two in creative ways.
Yeah. Speaking of speed, you said that your ideal clients are ready to build yesterday. Why is urgency such an important factor in your model?
So the value that we provide is that we deliver very good solutions quickly. And so we like clients that are operating with urgency because they want to see the end result of what they need and they really have like a drive to get that going forward. So typically we do need like a good amount of input from our clients on what they want to build. And the ones with urgency are more motivated to get us that. And so if you think about like a large scale LLM solution where you want to evaluate, is this output good? Typically, we have to work with the client to determine what good looks like. And someone that's motivated to get that solution is more excited about figuring that out and sharing that information from us. And so part of our job is to properly extract that information from clients so that we can provide it to the AI to get the output that they're looking for.
Right. Agentic workflows and customer facing agents are a core part of what Headstart builds. What does that look like in practice? And what kinds of use cases are most ready for AI agents right now?
This is my favorite question. So we define agentic workflows at Headstart. When you think about an agent, we think about something that gets a task done. So there has to be something that it's solving. It is identifying when it has accomplished that task. So the agentic part is that it's going to keep going until it has identified itself that it has done the task that you've told it to do. And it typically has access to a tool set. And you can think of a tool set as function calling essentially, but 4 to 5 tools is the optimal amount that we see. For most agentic workflows, you can go higher, but basically the more tools that you add, the more you might want to break it down into multiple agents to do the same thing. And so when you have like a lot of ways to think about it is like any workflow that's happening at your company, if you have a task that needs to get done and you want it done autonomously, we can typically build an agent for it. We try and keep them smaller scoped just so that we can ensure that we can measure it and that it's accurate and it's actually solving the use case. And you can build a couple of those across the organization. Our top use case for ourselves for agents is coding. And it's one of the top use cases in the market that you'll see everywhere. A lot of people have built out coding agents. We've built out our own. That's how we're writing all of the software so quickly. And so that has access to its tool set and typically it's very workflow based. And so as engineers, instead of going to open the pull request ourselves, we use the coding agent to then get that coding task done all the way to complete. And so that's an example of kind of like the task is implement this feature for this client or implement this part of this feature. And the tool set the agent has access to is the ability to change files, the ability to search the web and figure out if it needs documentation on a given case, the ability to connect to Figma and be able to pull in design specs. And so it's doing those things that you as an engineer previously would have done. And instead you can monitor and run a couple of them at once and just do things faster than you used to be able to. I think there's a lot of confusion in the market about kind of workflows versus agents. There's a lot you can automate with workflows that aren't necessarily agentic in the way that like kind of we talk about it or OpenAI or Anthropic talks about it. And that's still incredibly valuable. So you still do want to do that. And it's just balancing the two. You also don't always want an agentic workflow because of the looping until it gets the task done. It can be more costly and there are other things associated with it. And so it really depends on like what you need it to do. And we're typically asking companies to write down the workflows of humans or workflows they want to automate. And then we can usually translate that into an agent already with the technology.
If someone is, and you are helping someone decide whether the agentic workflow or a more traditional automation is the right approach? What are the key considerations that go into that decision?
So inputs and outputs, I always say everything's inputs and outputs. You'll hear me repeat that over and over again. If you want it to be deterministic, which means that you want the same result every single time through a given logic flow, that should be just a regular workflow, regular software, potentially an LLM call somewhere to translate some unstructured data into some structure that you need. But if it's going to follow the same logic every single time and that logic can be coded, you just want a regular work. If there's kind of different decisions that need to be made based on human knowledge right now, like human knowledge and intuition, that can typically be an agentic workflow because the LLMs can then choose which tool to use for which thing. And so that choice that a human would make is where you would want to move it on the agent side versus just consistent. This is done the same exact way every single time, no matter what. That's the deterministic side.
Yeah. And outside of coding and maybe internet research, what are the you see as the most common use cases for those agentic workflows across, whether it's fashion or financial services or any of your other customers? Where are the most interesting opportunities?
It's usually just getting data from one place to another. And then when you think about the tool set, internet research is a great one, right? Like you're trying to search for these things until you find the thing that you have found. And so anything that's like you're taking in either an image data set or a document data set, or you're searching the web, you're scraping the web, right? You need all these different data sources from the web, or you're plugging into different integrations, like let's say APIs or somewhere, and you're gathering data from there. And then you need to do things with the data at each given point. That can be, especially when it's things where it's like, okay, I need to decide based on this shape of the data which tools to then call. That is typically a use case for agentic stuff. It's funny when you start to think about like, what do people do at their jobs all the time and anyway? And how do you start to make those agentic? It's a lot of moving data from one place to another, which then goes back to the inputs and the outputs. We say the technology as it stands today is understood and underutilized. You can automate much more than people realize with what is available on the market to everyone, like publicly available.
Related, because there are many agentic startups, how should companies know when to build custom software and build custom agentic workflows versus buying an off-the-shelf solution? And how's that calculus different with AI maybe than 5 years ago?
Yes. So the calculus is different because things are now cheaper to build in-house and faster to build in-house than they ever have been. And so that makes the calculus to me lean much more towards build in-house. Buy is great if, again, always coming back to inputs and outputs, like what are you putting into the software that you're buying? Are you getting out what you need to get out right away? And is there any integration work and engineering work involved in that to get that live? If you're going to have to put a lot into the buy solution, sometimes the build solution, it's going to be just as much effort and it might end up being cheaper in the long run. You still have to run those same numbers that you would run, in a technical leadership role as you're looking at that. I just think it over indexes towards build right now because the cost of the LLMs is so cheap. And depending on what you want to get done, you can get a lot done for a lot less money. That being said, like there are a lot of great solutions on the market, and so those should still be evaluated. I think just running the numbers on price on those things and running the time on how long it would take to build it, you have such a shorter timeline on the build side. It'll look a little bit different than it used to.
Yeah. Related to kind of price and other considerations that one takes into account when making a decision, what are some common misconceptions that leaders have when they think about AI development, whether it's speed, quality, risk, or cost?
I think that speed is important. I think that cost is important. I think that data is immensely important. And it's not only the data that you have access to currently, but it's the data that you will generate from using your AI solution. And I think that data is not only structured data as you typically think about it, but it's internal operations workflows data. A lot of like what is in people's heads about how they do their job. The more documented that is, I think the more you can leverage it across all solutions. So we're constantly telling people to just write down their processes and their workflows, whether you're building or buying solutions to help automate those. So those are the main things that we help evaluate across. And then as you're thinking about also like the success of a given solution, like what does success look like in terms of an evaluation? Because a lot of the AI, it is non-deterministic, right? So it's harder to evaluate. And so you do have to think about how you're going to evaluate the success of implementations.
I'd love to walk through an example of your work and how a client came to you with a problem. Earlier, we were talking about sourced by, and love for you to walk through how you helped sourced by and Gab Waller use AI to automate luxury fashion sourcing. Tell us a little bit where that project started. What problem did they come to you with, and then where'd you go?
Yes, absolutely. So Gab came to us with this problem that she had built this incredible business around luxury fashion sourcing. And so she has sourcers, she has an entire team that's doing this process to be able to find people items of clothing that they would like to buy. And so we showed her from the onset just the power of this technology via Chat GPT initially, that you can upload the images that her clients were sending her, and you can get more information about that image just straight through Chat GPT. And so you could get the brand name of the items that were sent. You could understand like the color on the market, the price, if it's available anywhere online, like all those things you could get right away. And so we showed her the proof of concept with Chat GPT, and then we were able to integrate an entire custom workflow build for her. I think from start to finish, from zero to fully built, fledged MVP, we did 5 weeks. So very quick build. We focused on the image technology. And so we were using the 4.0 Vision API via OpenAI to identify all those qualities that typically her team was identifying via intuition, via experience. And then we built it in a way that the team could then make corrections if the AI did get it wrong. And someone said something recently, I think I read it on Twitter, that was like AI hallucinates 100% of the time. It's just 80% of the time that it gets it correct. And I really like that framing around hallucination, because it is probabilistic and the outputs they're not always 100% correct, but then gathering that data for her team to then make those corrections when it did get it wrong. What happened was during the course of the project, vision fine tuning from OpenAI actually came out while we were working on it. And so that data becomes immensely valuable to her as a company, because she can fine tune that vision API and all of a sudden have something like very proprietary to her business that powers like the revenue growth and the expansion of the service to more people. And so the technology there was incredibly cool. We started to put the workflow using OpenAI a couple other places as well, I think, for various forms of unstructured to structured data, a little bit of tool calling in that project. And one of the cooler things that we did on that project as well is we actually got brand assets in once the application development was complete. So we worked on the product flow, the UX, how everything would look, but we didn't have the color, the styling, and everything. And so we were able to use our coding agent to go in and do all of the brand styling update, get it all looking perfect. And that took an hour or two, whereas prior, like that might have taken up to a week before we had the technology available. So we're really able to cut down on the timelines, and the end result is an application that can help scale her team, that can serve more people, and then like the proprietary loop of like the technology build through the data that she's collecting.
And so the before state is people are manually they're using their own kind of intuition as to what this photo could be. They are doing a bunch of Googling and image searching, reverse image searching on their laptops. That was the before state. Sounds kind of time consuming and maybe lossy. The future state, or the current state, I guess now, is that this is all automated. Can you give us a sense of kind of the difference between the before and after state? Is there a certain amount of time saved? Does she think about it in terms of hours or days or dollars?
I think our typical frame of mind, and I think this is a bit of how Gab was thinking about it as well, is just like the growth and the volume that you can now handle, that you have software that you can scale with. And so very much thinking about it from how many more people can we service as a result of this versus like we cut X amount of hours. I think what ends up happening with a lot of this technology is it just allows you to offer your product and services to more people, which is really awesome for any growing business. And so that's very much the frame of mind that we think about it with. With that innovation comes, revenue growth and obviously time savings and cost efficiencies, but very much focused on it from how much more people can we help perspective.
And that process you mentioned took 5 weeks to go from scoping to an MVP. How long would it have taken 2 years ago?
2 years ago, at least like 2 to 3 months, I would say. And so we're certainly cutting it in half in terms of the development time. And a lot of the bottlenecks are your regular kind of human back and forth pairing together versus the actual implementation. And so that's another cool thing about it is, we had to put the brand assets in at the very end. Like some of those things, if you have everything up front, you can go even faster.
For leaders who are looking to start building with AI now, what's your advice on picking the right first project? We touched on this at the beginning, but what's a good sort of framework for them to use to find that first problem or use case that makes sense?
We typically guide people towards like what is something almost if you could wave a magic wand and have it be done, like what is an actual problem that you need solved in the business versus necessarily like, do I think AI can help me here? Just how do we solve a problem? What is the top problem for your users, for your clients, for your internal workflows? Solving that would improve your metric. We like to focus there because once you solve that quickly, and we can guide people on like where to use AI in order to solve that, you see the power of the technology, you see how much it can help, and you can see that it is solving like very real problems in front of you. Where we think it's more problematic is if people are just trying to like almost create a new problem that AI can solve that isn't a real burning problem for them, then you don't see how it can affect your business as directly. And so we guide people towards like, what do you need to solve anyway? Great, let's use AI.
Awesome. Um, let's talk a little bit about team composition. How should product orgs think differently about team composition in an AI native world?
The reality is the technology is impressive and advanced enough that everyone should be working more efficiently if they're using it. You should be able to accomplish more than you were previously once you start to work AI into your workflows. The other thing that is a bit different is the skill sets to leverage the AI are sometimes slightly different than the skill set that you need prior to the AI being possible. Coding is a good example here, and it's the one that I know the best. And so I've always used it. We don't hire engineers that write the best code by hand themselves. The AI should be writing the code. You do need engineers who understand the fundamentals. I think in an AI world, the fundamentals are more important than ever. And so that's still critical. They need to be able to identify if the code is good. They need to be able to read the code in order to get the best output from the LLM. You need to be able to articulate the nuance behind what you're trying to get out of it. So if you're building a product that's solving a business solution, you're writing unit tests for that business solution, you need to be able to understand what the business requirement is to then write the test that tests it properly. And you need to be able to describe that in natural language for the LLM to then write the test properly. And so we're testing much more for that ability to articulate yourself and how that relates to your job than specifically the old version of doing your job, writing the code. So that's how we're thinking about it a little bit differently. And we think that that's true in almost every role because we think all roles should be leveraging the AI in some way.
Yeah. For leaders that are skeptical about AI, what's a mindset shift that's helped your clients get faster and better results?
To use it. That's the lowest hanging fruit, I would say, to really start to see the power of it. Our clients, when they start using it in their day to day and when their teams start using it, that's when it really unlocks for them. My advice is even use it personally. And the more you use it personally, the more you will start to understand how it functions and where it can be helpful in the business too. By use it, I literally mean go to ChatGPT or Claude.ai and just type to it in the UX. ChatGPT on the app, you can actually speak to it. And so it's a very easy thing to just start to get in the habit of using. Once you see the power of it, then anyone who is thinking about their business problems will be able to understand how it applies there.
Yeah. For people who are listening and wondering whether Head Start would be a good fit for them, who's your ideal client? Whether it's a industry, I realize you work with a number of different industries, but whether it's an industry or a size or an individual, role within one of these organizations, who's the best fit for you?
So we always say our ideal ICP is someone that has a general sense of what they want. So you have a problem that you would like to solve. You don't need to know how to solve it with AI. You just need to have the problem. There has to be some urgency behind the problem. Like you want to have it done. Yeah. And then you just have to have a budget to be able to, we charge a premium for solutions quicker. And so the budget should be able to cover that premium for getting something done in, let's say, 2 to 4 weeks versus 6 months. And so that's the opportunity cost there.
We talked a lot about software development and how AI has enabled you to go much quicker than you would have been able to a few years ago. What's the future of AI software development? Will all the code be able to be written now a year from now? Will design and coding and prototyping and building all come together seamlessly? What does that future look like?
Yeah, so it's one we think about all the time and one that I don't have an answer to. If I did, I think it would be incredible if I knew. My best answer is yes, all the code will be written by the AI. I think there's no doubt about that. The timeline on that, I'm not 100% sure on. I think we're going to see more and more agentic workflows. And so more of agents orchestrating as well. So starting with a larger task, being able to break that down and then being able to have that all be done. The way we think about it is every role that we're taking as people in software development, we think can eventually be agentic. And so how do you encourage the collaboration of those agents then, orchestration of those agents to collaborate in a way that doesn't sacrifice on quality anywhere and that is cost efficient and can scale? We think about the cost efficiencies a lot as well in what we're doing. There will always be a need for people from where we're sitting. There are different perspectives on that. We think that as agents are doing more and more of the work, people will still be able to have a high level kind of understanding of what more can be done. I think the future is agents that can write agents, and that looks a lot more like AGI when an agent can identify that they need to be able to write software, agentic software that can then solve a problem for someone. That is where it gets really interesting, but it's maybe a bit further away, but not too much.
What do you think this means for innovation, whether it's startup formation or whether it's how businesses, small and large, are innovating to become better, which can mean a lot of different things? What does it mean for innovation?
So we're bootstrapped as a business. That's been something that we've been able to do because of AI. And so I think that the barrier to entry for innovation becomes lower, which is a good thing, and should be good for anyone. It means that you have access now to tools and they're cheaper and easier to use, and you can create something if you have agency behind that. And so I think it means more innovation, more advancement in technology, just better and bigger things that are coming. And so it's pretty exciting when you think about it that way.
Yeah. Awesome. Nicole, I really appreciate you coming by. Just curious and sharing your perspectives on how AI can be used to make things faster and better than before, and all the work you're doing for clients at Headstart. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.